This shelter in Hungary is filled with returned pets. Among them is Chelsea. He was adopted just 2 years ago from this very shelter. But he has an immune illness, and his owners could no longer afford his vet bills or the food needed to treat him. They had to sell their own home to make ends meet. It's a similar story for others who have had to leave their pets behind at the Noah's Ark Animal Shelter. As the cost of living continues to rise and energy prices continue to soar, many have had to make tough choices. Kinga Schneider is a spokesperson for the shelter.
Our list of returned animals is extremely long. There have always been adopted animals returned, but recently this has multiplied. In all cases, the main motivations are the difficulties faced because of cost of living, energy prices, high veterinary costs, and people moving and working abroad.
But shelters themselves are dealing with their own price increases. Cans of dog food have gone up 30 to 50%, according to the Hungarian Animal Protection Alliance. It says the strain is being felt across all of Hungary's animal shelters, with many of them refusing hundreds of animals because of costs. Meanwhile, donations, the sole source of income for shelters like Noah's Ark, have decreased.
We are now living from day to day here. We have to weigh up hard whether we can accommodate an animal, whether we can finance the medical treatment of an animal.
As new Twitter owner Elon Musk left a banking conference in New York City on Friday, scores of Twitter employees were being laid off, the company temporarily closing its offices and cutting workers' access to internal systems. The moves follow a week of chaos and uncertainty about the company's future under Musk. Simon Balmain has worked as senior community manager for Twitter in England and received Thursday's company-wide email warning of job losses.
And it was about an hour after that I found that my work laptop was remotely wiped and access to Slack and Gmail revoked. Checked in with a few US colleagues who were still awake, and many of them were reporting seeing the same thing.
Musk, the world's richest person, is looking to cut around 3,700 Twitter employees, or about half the workforce, as he seeks to slash costs and impose a demanding new work ethic, according to internal plans reviewed by Reuters this week. Staff who worked in engineering, communications, product, and content curation were among those impacted by the layoffs, according to tweets from Twitter staff. Twitter employees vented their frustrations about the layoffs on the social network using the hashtag #OneTeam. User Rachel Bond tweeted, "Last Thursday in the SF office. Really, the last day Twitter was Twitter. 8 months pregnant and have a 9-month-old. Just got cut off from laptop access." Musk previously fired the company's chief executive and top finance and legal executives. The Tesla CEO has promised to restore free speech while preventing Twitter from descending into what he called a hellscape. But his reassurances have failed to prevent major advertisers from threatening to withdraw from the platform. Musk on Friday pointed fingers at activists.
Recently had a lot of difficulty with activist groups pressuring major advertisers to stop spending money on Twitter. This is despite us doing everything possible to appease them.
Twitter did not immediately respond to a request for comments. A class action lawsuit was filed on Thursday against Twitter by its employees, who argued the company was conducting mass layoffs without providing the required 60-day advance notice, in violation of federal and California law.
Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the far-right Oath Keepers group, took the stand in his own defense on Friday. Federal prosecutors charged Rhodes and others in his organization with seditious conspiracy over what investigators say was their role in trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power during the deadly January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Testifying in court, Rhodes presented a softer side than the image he commonly projects as that of a fiercely anti-government supporter of former President Donald Trump. A Yale law-educated former U.S. Army paratrooper, Rhodes teared up at times as he spoke about his decision to create the Oath Keepers in 2009, saying it is a civic-minded group that welcomes people of all races. Prosecutors have said Rhodes is a radical far-right figure who urged his followers to use any means necessary, including violence, to keep Trump in power and prevent Congress from certifying President Joe Biden's election victory. After the January 6th attack, Rhodes was secretly recorded in a profanity-laced call, saying, quote, "We should have brought rifles," and that he would have been happy to hang House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the top Democrat in Congress, from a lamppost. While most of the rioters at the U.S. Capitol have said they were motivated by Trump's false claims that the 2020 election was stolen, Rhodes said he believed the election had been unconstitutional because of new rules to make it easier for voters to cast ballots during the pandemic. Rhodes and 4 other co-defendants are facing multiple felonies in connection with the January 6th attack by supporters of then-President Donald Trump that sent lawmakers and staffers fleeing for their lives. The seditious conspiracy charge carries a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. Rhodes is set to resume testifying on Monday.
And that's how they flip the states. Because they can dump as many votes as they want, because we all know they cheat. I come from Venezuela, the capital of cheating in elections.
Carmen Maria Montiel is a Republican running for Texas' 18th congressional district in the U.S. midterm elections. She's one of hundreds of Republicans on the ballot in 2022 who falsely claimed the 2020 presidential election was stolen by fraud. She warned, without evidence, that the same thing could happen again.
What I'm telling the people is that we need to go to vote massively, that the only way we can overcome the cheating is to vote massively.
Republican Irene Armendariz Jackson, running for the 16th congressional district in Texas, goes further, saying that those who stand by the actual election results are the real, quote, deniers.
We should call the other side that voter denier, because they're denying legitimate voters' vote to be counted, and those to be the ones that actually decide the elections.
A nationwide survey by FiveThirtyEight found 201 of 552 Republican candidates running for office fully deny the 2020 election results. 24 of them are in Texas, more than any other state.
Well, Texas has a lot of election deniers running for office because the Republican Party is very big in Texas.
History and public policy professor at the University of Texas at Austin, Jeremy Surrey, says the election denial is a tactic for Republicans to position themselves close to the most popular figure in their party, the former president.
There are a lot of Republicans, particularly outside of the cities in Texas, who are associating themselves with Donald Trump and that part of the Republican Party. And this is one of the standard lines they are using to identify themselves.
Well, January 6th was the American people expressing themselves.
Key to the deniers' narrative, claiming the violent attack by Trump supporters on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021 was a noble act by patriotic citizens.
I was there and I saw that they were very respectful. They were just pressing their opinion and fighting for their country, because most of the people that were there, they understand that we are losing our country.
Joe Biden defeated Trump by more than 7 million votes in 2020, and Trump's claim of fraud at the time were repeatedly rejected by courts and state and federal election authorities.
You can't call yourself a democracy or supporting democratic principles if you say the only election that's fair is the one I win.
Biden, in a pitch to voters ahead of the midterms, said that candidates who deny the results of the 2020 election are a threat to U.S. democracy. Election distrust has spread to local contests in Texas. Bruce Sherbert is the election administrator for Collin County outside of Dallas-Fort Worth. He tells Reuters that there is more distrust surrounding the 2022 vote than any other in his 4 decades of working Texas elections.
There's definitely a confidence problem with some folks in our election processes, and the best way to address that is to be transparent about the process, to show all of the safeguards that are built into the voting process, and to answer questions when they come up. And that's really how we're going to start maybe getting things a little bit more on track in that regard.
Wall Street rallied on Friday, snapping a 4-session losing streak in a choppy session as investors wrestled with a mixed jobs report. All 3 main indexes rose by about 1.25% or more. The Labor Department's closely watched non-farm payrolls report showed the U.S. added more jobs than expected in October, but data also showed a small rise in the unemployment rate. That uptick was enough for investors to think the Federal Reserve might downsize its rate hikes, says Doug Sandler, head of global strategy at Riverfront Investment Group.
I think one of the reasons that stocks are up today is that, you had the non-farm payroll report, and there was some data in there that did show some signs of employment slowing or unemployment rising. And that's what we're really trying to, that's what the Fed's looking to, is they have to balance stable prices and full employment. That's their dual mandate. And as long as employment is full, they just focus on stable prices, which they stabilize by raising interest rates. Once you start to see unemployment rising, the Fed has to pay attention to that second mandate of full employment, because constituents scream at their politicians, politicians scream at the Fed, and the Fed can't just be tin-eared and keep raising rates when the economy is starting to slow.
The U.S. midterm elections on November 8th, where control of Congress is at stake, will be in focus for the market next week, as well as a key consumer inflation reading due on Thursday. Meanwhile, hopes of an easing in China's tough health restrictions supported U.S.-listed shares of Chinese companies, including Alibaba and its rival in the e-commerce space, JD.com, which ended nearly 10% higher. Shares of Starbucks jumped after the coffee chain topped Wall Street estimates for quarterly sales and profit, and food delivery firm DoorDash reported a revenue beat that also boosted shares.